New Zealand. Sorry for pronouncing incorrect. And so she'll be talking about green local and central government 3% tickets. So over to you, Celia.
Celia, you're on mute.
Okay, we'll start again. Namaste, kia ora, ni hao, and warm Pacific greetings. It's a pleasure to be with you for us, it is Saturday evening, and it's a pleasure to meet people from around the world who share values in a very tough world. So I look forward to hearing your questions at the end, and I'll work through my presentation. In New Zealand, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, our tradition is that we start with a karakia. Some people call it a blessing, some people call it a prayer. So I will read this. Ma te whakapono, ma te tumanako, ma te tiro, ma te whakarongo, ma te mahitahi, ma te whakamomoroi, ma te aroha, ka taia e mātua. So you've got the English there as well. And I believe that Anita will be able to share this later. So I want to give you a little bit of a background about me before party politics anyway. That first slide, it's all smoky, it's all dark. That's where I grew up. I grew up in a council flat in London, looking out over the Paddington Main Line. And that's a painting by my sister. She grew up to be a very wonderful artist. I think that taught me about living in a fairly dense environment, and it taught me the value of green spaces like Kensington Gardens, and it taught me the value of good public transport. When I was 18, I took a gap year, and the middle picture here is where I went. I went to Ghana in West Africa, and I spent 8 months working as laboratory assistant. And it was such an interesting experience. I shared a bedroom with a Ghanaian girl in the 7th form, and I shared a sitting room with an American teacher, and I just met so many people. And I went to this country at 18. Of course, no internet, no cell phone, no TripAdvisor or anything. So that was quite cool. And it really shaped my life afterwards, because I felt I could go anywhere in the world and meet people, interesting people, and enjoy myself. I won't tell you about the parties I went to, but that was a lot of fun. When I came back to England, I went to university, studied philosophy, and then I worked for IBM, and then I taught at a secondary school. I was a feminist. I got involved, I think like Ava, with the anti-nuclear movement. I did animal rights activities. I protected green spaces, but it was all through community groups. I went to one meeting of the Labour Party, and it was so incredibly boring that I never went back. So if they hadn't talked about amendments and AGMs, I might have joined them, and history might have been different for me. And then when I was 26, I moved to New Zealand, and that picture with the boats is the south coast of Wellington. Wellington is the capital of New Zealand, also known as Poraki, Te Whanganui-a-Tara, but internationally it's probably easier to refer to it as Wellington. This is the south coast, and it's very beautiful. And that beach, as you'll find out later, that beach was critical in me getting involved in politics. So I think it's important for both men and women to consider how politics and activism fits in with family life. It shouldn't have to be one or the other. We shouldn't have to forget our families when we do politics, and our families have to be a bit flexible when we've got lots of lots of meetings and lots of phone calls. So the two little boys, my sons are now 34 and 31. And I was elected as a politician when the youngest one was 8 months old. So yes, I went. That was a challenging time, and it relied on having a very supportive partner. The middle picture, that's my sister who painted the picture, sadly just deceased this year, but very fond of her. And that's her daughter-in-law in the middle and her granddaughter, Talitha, Caribbean heritage, and they live in Ethiopia. And the other two ladies are my great aunt and her sister. So, you know, we span the globe fairly well, because the little boy on the left now lives in America. Talitha, the little girl, is a mother and lives in Ethiopia. And yeah, and I'm here in New Zealand. The next picture is me and my dad. My mum died in 2004, and he moved over to New Zealand and lived there for the last 5 years of his life. And I was already aware of some of the mobility and accessibility issues, but he really made a difference to my life. And we had a lot of fun, and he was able to vote for me once, which was one of the nice things. And then over on the right, that little boy on the left is now a big hairy man, and he's married. He lives in America. So yeah, we really do go right round the world. And I've just become a granny, which is very exciting. But I don't think I was the granny when I prepared this PowerPoint a couple of weeks ago. So that was the best picture I could give you. So think back to that beach. I did a beach cleanup for Greenpeace. And one of the people I met when I did that beach cleanup was a Green councillor on the Wellington City Council. Now, I had not even thought about local government. I'm embarrassed to say I couldn't have told you who was the mayor. And I always think that's really healthy to remember, because some of our young people, they're so involved in politics and they forget that a lot of people, they don't know who the mayor is, they don't know who their MP is, and perhaps they don't care. So that poster on the left with me with a fringe was in 1992. And the other three were elected, but I was not. So 1992, I thought I was going to be the earliest person here, but Eva beat me to it. She was in the 1980s, but I stood in 1992, but I didn't get on. But in 1994, we had a by-election, and that's my little brochure for the by-election. Well, I think it wasn't even a brochure, it was just a one-page thing. No social media then. I stood successfully in another four elections as a local councillor, and then twice as mayor, until I stood down for my deputy to succeed. And the rather nice picture on the right is my official mayoral portrait. I didn't want to go and spend hours having it painted and then not really look like me. So the official photographer took my picture. And in fact, I've still got the same ticky on today. It's a very important reminder to me that I'm an immigrant to New Zealand, and that I need to learn and respect the Indigenous peoples, the Maori people of New Zealand. The other thing that I think you might find interesting, as well as the sort of official chains, is the bicycle. one of the most famous episodes when I was mayor was I cycled to meet Hillary Clinton. The mayor in our cities, the mayor welcomes foreign dignitaries. And I think I'd been elected in October and Hillary Clinton came in November, and people were completely horrified that I'd cycled to the airport. But I thought it was great. And of course, I wasn't wearing lycra. I was wearing a perfectly respectable suit. But people, that was very amusing. So I thought I better have the bicycle in my official portrait. And I still got it, and I cycle to Parliament on it every day now. So I've got a big, long list of achievements. You'll be glad to know I'm not going to go through every one of them, but they show quite a balance across different interests. And here's a lovely Maori proverb or whakatoki. E hara takotoa I te toa takitahi, engari he toa takitini. Basically, you don't get things done on your own, but only by working together. And in New Zealand, the mayor can't just do what they want to do. They have to get a majority. And some of the items on this list could have been done by any mayor. Some were because I had a bright idea, and some were a really hard battle. So the environmental grants were an idea I had when I was at the first budget meeting back in '94. So I was elected in April. We had our budget debates in June, and there were sports grants, there were arts grants, there were community grants. And I said, oh, why aren't there any environmental grants? And bless them, they all said, oh, that's a good idea. So we had environmental grants, and we still got them 30 years later. They've gone up and they've gone down, but they're still there. The living wage for council employees, I thought they would all be on a living wage. How wrong I was. The security guards, the library assistants, the lifeguards, they were all below a living wage. And the big fight was not so much the other elected members, but senior management was not very happy. But we got it through and it stuck. And I don't think anyone will ever go back on that. So that's wonderful. The bike lanes, and I'm sure people in other countries have had experience of this, putting in bike lanes seems like the end of the world to some people. They want to die in a ditch about the car park outside their house or outside their shop, not understanding that we will end up in gridlock if we don't move to walking, cycling, and public transport. Oh, I've got to. Oh, I might have to take my ear things out in a moment, but hopefully you're still hearing me all right. And one of the economic things we did was when I was mayor, we bought the land for a convention centre that is now built. And that's an example of how long it sometimes takes. I think Lou was mentioning how long it took to get a public toilet. Well, from buying the land in I think about 2014, it's taken another 5 or 6 years to construct it. But it's a very popular convention centre and good for the local economy, the local hospitality. I want to talk about one example in a bit more detail. We have a park now. Most of it was, some of it was public land, but quite a lot of it was private land. Back in 1996 or 97, people came up with the idea of having a mountain bike park. I mean, mountain biking was quite new then. And there was a big debate in which case the previous mayor did not support buying more land. And I am glad to say did support buying more land. And this is a world-class mountain bike place to go. I mean, people who like mountain biking, men or women, beginners or experienced people can have a lot of fun here. And as you can, if you look at the picture, you can see here we are on a hilltop, and then you look down to where the built both the businesses and houses are, and then you've got the inner harbour. I mean, I'm very biased, but I think Wellington is the most beautiful capital in the world. So there you are. So this place, it started with the idea of recreation, but it also was very strongly about conservation. It was just a bit of fairly barren farmland in the 90s. But for every metre of track, I think they planted a tree. So there are now about, it's 35 kilometres, I think there's about 30,000 trees, and they earn carbon credits. So it pays for itself in many ways. And this was one of the projects that Wellington put forward for the Lee Kuan Yew Prize. I had hoped we'd have somebody from Singapore who would know more about the Lee Kuan Yew Prize, but we put Wellington forward on the basis of this project, predator-free Wellington, where we're getting rid of the rats, and the third project was Zealandia, which was the world's first fenced sanctuary. And all of them make Wellington more attractive to live in, as well as being good for biodiversity. So that's, for me, the most special thing about Wellington is bringing nature back to live side by side with people. And there's a wonderful network called Biophilic Cities, and I can send Anita a link to that to put it in. If you're interested, it's a very worthwhile thing to look at. So then I'd been mayor for 6 years. I wouldn't have, our terms are quite short, they're only 3 years. And I was sort of thinking that maybe I'd do a third term. But my deputy mayor was keen, and we were generally on the same page about political things. So I said, we didn't announce it till the last minute, but we said in 2016, I'll stand down and you can take it on. So I took a break. I took a complete break from politics. There were 2 things I said I would do, because you have to be ready. The press all say, well, what are you going to do next? And I tell you what, the answer wasn't become an MP. There were 2 answers. One was I was going to walk Te Aotearoa. Now, Te Aotearoa is 3,000 kilometres, the whole length of New Zealand. It's a wonderful thing. And my husband and I did that together, camping, staying in huts, and the occasional comfy hotel. And that took us 5 months. The other thing I said I would do is learn to teach English as a second language. And I did that, and I taught for just the summer school in China, in one of the most beautiful places, other than Wellington, of course, in Yangshuo in the Guilin province, near Guilin. It's the most beautiful part of China, with mountains and rivers, and you can even swim in the rivers. So after all those adventures, this is the little house. I'm actually talking to you sitting in this little house. It is a tiny house. It's in the middle of a forest, and we do have internet now. So that was the sort of what I thought my life was going to be like. However, in 2020, I'd joined the Greens, and they didn't have a candidate in this election for the general election. So that's me with my green rosette in 2020. Oh, and I'm still wearing the same tikkie. I think all these pictures, I've got this tikkie on. And I was just trying to talk about politics in a very rural, quite right-wing electorate. And I didn't get elected. I wasn't very far up the Green list because I'd only found out they needed a candidate at the last minute. But obviously I got keen again on politics, and in 2023 I stood on the list, and I was one because we have mixed member proportional representation here. So you have some electorate MPs and some on the list. And that's me giving my maiden speech. Yes, again, wearing the ticky. It means a lot to me. And so I got on, when one of the MPs resigned, and I got on in January 2024. And here's a group of us. We come out for all sorts of protests. This was about improving the hospital in Dunedin, but we also come out regularly for supporting Palestine, for clean water, for all sorts of things. The Greens are out on the steps of Parliament supporting the communities that come to us. So it's pretty tough in opposition at the moment in New Zealand. I mean, many of you will remember the time when we had Jacinda Ardern and politics of kindness, and we set up the Zero Carbon Act, which is sort of just hanging on by the skin of its teeth now. But this government is very negative. It's the Greens have got a wonderful vision of a country that we can all be proud to call our home, where all of our children rise out of poverty. We reduce violence, we reduce the prison population, we increase conservation spending, and we have a just transition. So we stop coal mining, stop drilling for oil, but make sure that people have got good jobs. One of the most recent issues that this government got very wrong is they cancelled 33 pay equity claims just to make the budget balance, and we were horrified. So we promised that we will restart those, and maybe in 2026, I hope we're going to be in a position to do that. But the coalition is very cruel. It's been tough on renters, tough on people in poverty, but easy for big business, easy for drilling for oil and mining, and easy for landlords. And easy for tobacco companies as well. Those are my particular portfolios. You know, the Greens, we're all interested in everything. Every portfolio interacts with every other portfolio, but we have to divide up the work between us somehow. I just want to say I have the local government portfolio, and for those of you who are thinking central government, don't forget the importance of local government. So whether it's biodiversity and looking after our native owls, whether it's better public transport, or whether it's looking after the needs of our tamariki, our children, local government has a very immediate impact. And I think I will stop now, and delighted to hear any questions that you have. And that's a view of where I live with the clematis flowering in the springtime. Over to you.
Thank you very much. You have done a wonderful job, and I really wish if we could have such MPs in India, because in India it is like so much religion has, uh, overtaken over the politics that we can't, think of all these development what you have been done. So we are really proud of our green MPs, and over to everybody. If anybody has any questions for our keynote speaker, so please raise your hand.